because we've been waiting on you. We have.
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Respass. I'm the lead pastor at Anitoch Christian Fellowship, which is in Corinth. So it's not in Denton proper, but it's in Denton County, just not too far south from here. And before I even say much more, I just want to, express my gratitude to Zandria and B.R.O for the opportunity to come out and to share tonight. I just applaud you all for taking serious the charge to go out and grab the opportunity to impact history, to impact it in your local community, and to not just simply say that Black Lives Matter, which is a chant that anybody can utter, but to put your hands on the plow and really do the work. So I just want to applaud you all, and again, I'm so very grateful to be here tonight. So let me give you a little bit about myself. I'm from Durham, North Carolina, and grew up there my entire life. And while there, I've had some of these experiences that serve as some of the hallmarks of a movement like this. I've been fortunate in that I have not personally experienced any physical brutality, but the microaggressions. I mean, at 16 years old, I remember being stopped on Duke's campus for absolutely no reason, only because I was driving a car that they didn't think I should have been driving. And so at 16, in a very heavily wooded area at night, I just got pulled over for no reason, probably just to tool me around and hopefully hit on a jackpot that maybe I stole this 67 Mustang that I was driving. At 18, when I was at Morehouse College, and Morehouse College is the college that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. attended, as well as a number of other more prominent Black leaders. While there at Morehouse College at 18, I was on my way to drive back home to North Carolina with a couple of friends, and because we were in another car that was gray, had Florida tags, we were going to the 7-Eleven to get some chips so we could get up early the next day, and we were, for all intents and purposes, detained for at least an hour as they searched and searched and searched and searched, trying to find a reason to arrest us. At the age of 30, my wife is here, my son who is here, and my other two kids were there with us. We were in a van full of pillows and blankets and soggy ham sandwiches in Asheville, North Carolina, to vacate and to relax. And because, for whatever reason, Highway Patrol just decided that they would stop us, pull us on the side of the road. My kids were concerned, my wife was concerned, I was concerned because at that time I lived in Texas for a while, not really sure what was going to happen. But it reminded me of my upbringing. I come from a place where, to be frank, the Klan is heavily steeped in North Carolina. When I was 17 years old, I walked with a group from Virginia to South Carolina, all the way through North Carolina to advocate for the Kidney Foundation. And on that 200-mile walk, needless to say, there were cities where we needed police escorts because there were threats on these high school kids' lives, these Black high school kids' lives, because they would dare to walk through their city. Again, by the grace of the Lord, I didn't personally experience any physical brutality, but the psychological damage. I was telling my wife recently that being followed in the store was so common, I just treated them like they were my personal shoppers. Right? I would just go into a store and be followed for no absolute reason. Can I help you? Not really, but since you're coming anyway, why don't you help me? Right? This is just the experience that I had, and I take it for granted and still kind of take it for granted because that's the way that I was brought up. And so as Andrea mentioned, there's no way to really embrace the not only the struggle, but some of the victories that have been attained within the Black community without also engaging the reality of the work of the church. And sometimes that makes people uncomfortable, but the reality is if it had not been for the church, particularly at the time of the Civil Rights Act and the Civil Rights movement, who knows what would happen? We would probably still be set back a bit further. But because the church gave not only a place, but a platform whereby which not only the good news about Jesus could be preached, but the training, the preparation, and the planning for how to advance the cause of African Americans African Americans, it would just be stymied. It would really be stymied. And so it is apropos. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to share. And I really was, praying, and I'm a pastor. It is what it is. I'm a lawyer by training, Morehouse College, Texas Law, Southwestern Divinity School, DTS Theological Seminary. All right, so I got all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, what you see is what you get. And sometimes what you see is all that matters. And prayerfully, there'll be a day when what I say will be the judge and how I behave will be the judge. But unfortunately, just like somebody who's tatted up, sometimes people just make decisions about who you are and your character just because they're looking at you. But I heard some things today that give me confirmation about what I want to share. And I pray that you feel my heart, because you guys, what I've heard so far is about the work that you're putting in, right? It's not about the photo op. It's not about just carrying the signs, but it's going into places that may make you feel uncomfortable. It's having conversations that you might not otherwise have had, but you're exercising the courage to do it. And unfortunately, it's because someone lost their life. In fact, several someones have lost their lives. But that has been the catalyst, right, to bring you here. And so we're going to seize this moment. And there's some things that I want to share. I'll let you know that they have spiritual undertones and overtones just because that's who I am, right? So I ain't trying to take you to church, but if I drive by, just don't hold it against me, right? But there are a couple things that I want to share. And the first thing that I want to say, and I wish I could hold all this stuff in my mind. About 25 years ago, I could do that, but right now I got to cheat. The first thing that I want to point out and to remind all of you all is to know who the real enemy is. Know who the real enemy is, because it's so easy to lose sight of who the real enemy is. Now, what we see physically manifesting also has a spiritual root. And this is the connection that I wanted to lay that foundation for with respect to the church. Because everything that we find ourselves dealing with on this side has a spiritual root. And we've got to be careful that as you're going out, as you're standing, as you're, oh, bless you. As you're going out, as you're working, as you're standing, that you don't lose sight of what the real cause is, and then spend all of your energy working on the symptoms, right? Any doctor that's worth their salt is not only going to address your symptom, that's why they give you a pain pill, but they're also going to give you an antibiotic in order to address the root cause. And because you guys have your hands on the ground, right, what you're doing is going out to address the cause. But in order to address the cause, you got to make sure that you really know the enemy, right? That you're coming up against the right thing. And so, ladies and gentlemen, there is a spiritual wickedness that is behind the systemic racism. Right? So often we think about spiritual wickedness being localized within an individual. that that person is evil and these people are evil. But it turns out that there is a corporate systemic nature to evil. You can look at evil regimes, right? You can look at groups that espouse hatred or promote things that are destructive to, people's lives and to their livelihoods. And so please, as you're going out into the communities and you're speaking these good things and you're encouraging the people, don't lose sight of who's the real enemy or what is the real enemy. Because systemic racism, that's not about one person. That's well above an individual. That's well above an individual. And so from where I'm from, right, we're talking about principalities and powers in high spiritual places that have a manifestation here in the physical. So what we end up living out sometimes is just, the symptom of the real root cause. So don't lose sight of that. Because just as there is a plan to address the systemic racism on the tangible side, listen, you got to have a plan to address it on the spiritual side. And that was the close connection in the civil rights movement. You had not only feet and boots on the ground, you also had knees on the ground. And you also had sermons that were building up people's, intestinal fortitude to go out and deal with the drama. I'm like Zandria. I don't exactly know if I could take a German Shepherd right about now. I don't know, as hot as it is, I'm really trying to deal with a fire hose right now. And so I would imagine that I would need something else other than my own resolve, right, to go out and stand and endure and press, right? And so you gotta battle it. I just want to say, as you're fighting this enemy, don't find yourself putting a face on it necessarily. Understanding that it's well beyond an individual, right? So know that enemy. And then here's the second thing, y'all. Pray for discernment to know the difference. Pray for discernment to know the difference between an enemy and an ally. Now, there's a story about this bird. Y'all may have heard this account before. But there's a story about this bird that's flying south for the winter, but he leaves too late. And so because he left late, about halfway through the trip, it gets too cold and his wings freeze. And he ends up falling to the ground. But he falls to the ground in the middle of this country farm. While they're shivering in the cold, a cow comes by and poops right on top of the bird. The bird is upset, but after a while he started feeling warm. And the warmth from the fresh poop started to make him sing. And so he started singing, but a farm cat heard him chirping. And the farm cat comes over and digs him out of the poop and eats him. And so the moral of this thing is everybody that poops on you is not necessarily your enemy. And everybody that pulls you out of poop is not necessarily your friend. And so you're going to need the discernment to know who's who, so that you don't find yourself fighting against somebody that's really an ally or bringing in somebody that's really an enemy, right? You just got to, we have to have our eyes open and be discerning enough to be able to tell the difference between the two. Because right now, if you just kind of look around, right, it's a collection of people. Whether that's because of race, whether it's because of age, whether it's because of financial wherewithal or academic training, right? You're united for a particular cause. And watch this. I'll talk to Zandria. I heard about how you all are earning the respect of law enforcement because you're working to promote their involvement within the community, right? That stuff is it's imperative, right, that those relationships be nurtured in order to accomplish what it is, right, that you're trying to accomplish. There's no way you can do it by yourself. Law enforcement, in my opinion, in spite of some of the things that we've seen happen on the news and even locally, listen, there's going to have to be some type of involvement, some type of cooperative involvement in order for not just the Black life, community to thrive, right? But also the interaction between them for it to improve. And so you got to have the discernment to know who's really an ally and on your team and who's really trying to undermine the mission and tool you. Which then leads me to this point, and then I'm out of here, right? Because I said I ain't come to preach, but I'm a preacher, so it is what it is. Here's the other piece, and this is the thing that maybe is the most pastoral out of everything I'm saying, is listen, protect your heart. Protect your heart. Because you guys are on the front lines. You guys are going in places that maybe some other groups aren't going. Right? You're laboring, you're tired. Some of you, your feet are hurt, you're injured, borderline, dehydrated. You're drinking your water, you're doing all this stuff. But after it's all said and done, and it's been emotionally charged here for like the last week or so, guess what? When you go home, you got to deal with the aftermath, right? You have to deal with your own heart, right? It's the crying that you're doing at home. And there's a psalm, Psalm 30 says, weeping may endure or tarry for a night, but joy comes in the morning. And it's the kind of idea that there is a hope that something is going to change. But what if morning doesn't come for you? What if all you have right now is dealing with the pain that you're experiencing? Right? So Jesus kind of had this kind of experience when he was in the garden. And he had all kind of folks who said they loved him, but when they really needed him to be there, just like you said, where are all the other black folks? Right? When they really needed somebody to be there and pray for them, they were asleep. But it was by himself in the garden, in that case with his Heavenly Father, that he was doing work with his own heart. Listen, when you're going out on the emotion and you're going out on the adrenaline and the cause is really driving you, do not forget to protect your heart. Do not forget to find that safe space where you can get in a corner and just cry. Just cry. Where you don't have to have the answers and you don't have to have the sign and you're just as you're just as bewildered as everybody else. Right? Have the courage. Right? Real talk, to just protect your own heart. Right? And don't grow weary in well-doing. This is the long game. Right? If this is a weekend, 2-weekend thing, hey, just dial it in now. Right? Real talk. Right? And I'm not that guy. I mean, I'm just saying. Right? This kind of change requires a heart change. And it doesn't happen in a weekend, else it wouldn't be repeating itself. Right? The last March would have did it. Right? This is the long game. This is a long game. And so self-care is as much a part of this as it is raising the sign. And so if it's okay, I would like to pray, because that's what they would do, right, at Dr. King's church. Now, if, I'm going to just pray. You can look around and you can pray or whatever it is that you do. I'm not here to drag you into that. But that is what would happen, right? If we were at the church in the 60s, they'd absolutely pray, right? And so I want to do that not only for your protection, but that everybody would be unified, and that there would be a singular heart and a singular focus on the mission, right? And that you be vulnerable to each other because y'all are in it, y'all got skin in the game. But that even when it gets testy, right, that you won't get caught up in your feelings. That if you really gonna grow, know there's gonna be some sticky places. Somebody gonna say something they shouldn't have said because they didn't know. Somebody gonna try to check you a little harder than they should have. But understanding you guys are on the same team. You're on the same team. So if you will, Lord, I thank you so much for these who have come out, certainly not to hear me, God, but to really take up this banner, to demonstrate not only with their marching and their voices, but the places that they're going, that Black lives really matter. I pray for unity, not only amongst this group, but within the community, within the institutions, Lord, so that there will be a change. Let Denton be the starting point, a city that has a history, one that I don't fully know, but I know of some of it. It has a history, Lord, where white supremacy in specific has had a root. Lord, we ask that you would root it out. And that, Lord, all of this effort and groundwork, Lord, would be the catalyst for change, for long-lasting change. I pray, God, that you would give them the fortitude that they need to go forward, to do what you call them to do, so that the sun, the SUN, would shine on this city and in our neighborhoods. We thank you so much, God. I thank you for the opportunity to speak to these wonderful people who are doing more than just talking about it, they're being about it. This I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor.